everyone, we're back for another episode. Today we will be discussing how we can cultivate joy in our life, even in the midst of grief. We'll also talk about a challenge that Pastor gave us as we are to put God first in the things of our life over the next 3 months. Let's jump into today's discussion.
This weekend was good.
Yeah, we learned about joy, right? How can we cultivate joy in our life? And I think a big thing that you mentioned is how can we change our perspective? Like, we view the circumstances of our life eternally. Mm-hmm. How are some practical ways we can practice that?
Yeah, because the whole beginning really was about perspective, wasn't it? And, what is the perspective that...
For us to get outside of ourselves.
Yeah, for us to get out. Zooming out. It was the idea of zooming out instead of being focused on these minute details of our life that we get impatient and angry over. How do we change our perspective? And thinking of Nicodemus and the perspective that he had. Really, Nicodemus was an example of the root problem of the people of Israel. Their perspective was national. They were nationalistic. It was about them as a people group and as a people, and the whole point of the Gospels and the New Testament is moving into this perspective of where the gospel and being born again, entering the kingdom of God and the kingdom of heaven, was changing from being part of a people group ethnically to being just someone that is born again by the Spirit of God. And so thinking of how do we change that perspective from looking at ourselves and who we are to zooming out to seeing the bigger picture of God in eternity. It sounds so cliche, but it has to be the means of grace.
Yep.
And the means of grace are the Bible, prayer, church, worship. It's the things we do as a Christian that God practically uses to change our lives, and it's how he dispenses his grace in our life. So it's very easy for people to listen to a message like this weekend or even listen to what I'm talking about right now, and you start to get this attitude, well, all he's doing is talking about the things we're supposed to do.
Yep.
Yeah. But again, perspective. There's a different perspective that I'm talking about. I'm talking about the grace of God making that effective in our lives. And the grace of God is affected through the things that we do. That's what God uses to dispense his grace in our life. Do you see the difference in that perspective? It's not legalism. It's not doing it to earn something with God. It's doing it because that's how God practically dispenses grace in our life.
Yeah, that's good.
Like, how do we know, how do we learn more about God? Well, we would say, well, it's the grace of God, right? But it's not. The grace of God isn't us sitting and somehow God raining down and implanting in our minds who he is.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's us picking up the Bible and opening it.
Experiencing
and reading about who he is. That's why Bible reading is so important. It's not Bible reading to merit some sort of merit something from God. It's Bible reading because that's the place where his grace is dispensed to us through us looking and reading about who he is and what he did and how we can know him in a deeper way.
Yeah, I guess as I was listening to the sermon this week, I had a question about if someone's dealing with like severe grief or going through a season, maybe they lost someone or loss of health we've talked about, how does the message of zooming out, like, to find joy in that circumstance, how can they practically do that?
Yeah, I think is it Thessalonians where it talks about us not grieving like the world. We don't grieve like the world because we know the world isn't the end.
Yep.
And the idea of zooming out from that perspective, what I mean by that is zooming in would be just looking at the circumstances of finite life.
Yeah.
Moments in life that end and don't continue. Zooming out to the eternal perspective of what life is. You're going to be sad.
Yeah.
You're going to experience loss. That's all part of life, and grief is part of life. but it's not hopeless grief. It's sadness because now there's a time period where you got to wait before there's an eternity together with that person. So zooming out is the idea of zooming to that eternal perspective that this life is more than this life. It continues.
Well, it's kind of what it talks about too. Having someone who's been through loss, I can speak for it specifically, and I think there's a point where God, which we have seen throughout the Bible, test us in different trials, right?
Yeah.
And grief is one of those trials where in it might be hard, but when you are through it and you start to see the grace of God, like you're saying in your life, you get a new understanding to the word. You get a new understanding to his sovereignty, and you get a new understanding of appreciating the other blessings that he puts in your life. That just like Job, when he gives and he can take away, blessed be the name of the Lord, that you can hang in that faith.
But everything that you're saying, the sovereignty, the other things in life, that you only see that when you can zoom out past the circumstance of the loss.
Yeah.
Zooming in, what I mean by that is your mindset is you're caught in this loop of only thinking about that thing and that loss
That
and the
present
hopelessness
moment.
And that moment you're just caught in it.
But
it's
you have
stirring
the
grief.
freedom in that to be sad.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. Sadness is part of it.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think I said it 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
Jesus was sad.
Yeah.
When Lazarus died, Jesus wept and he was sad even knowing that Lazarus would be resurrected.
Yep.
Sadness is not a sin. Sadness is just a part of what God's given us in this life.
So it's easy for us to, I think, feel guilty sometimes when we're sad or negative and feel like we need to zoom out, or maybe we're too focused on ourselves. So how do we know where's that line of like feeling sadness, feeling that pain and that emotion in the moment, and then realizing, all right, I'm focusing too much on this and I need to zoom out?
I think you start to notice it when when you sense yourself. There could be any point in that line, right? You could trip that line when you fall into hopelessness. Well, now I've moved from being sad. Now think of the Psalms. The Psalms would be a perfect example.
Yeah.
There's complaint in the Psalms. There's questioning God in the Psalms. There's grief in the Psalms. There's sadness in the Psalms. And so those things aren't inherently bad in and of themselves. I think God encourages those things clearly because they're the Psalms. And David does them. And David comes before. Think of David with his son who's dying.
Yeah.
He's crying. He's praying. He's grieving. He's crying out to God. He's fasting. He's in ashes and dust. The people around him are saying he's losing his mind. He's losing his mind. His baby dies. He gets up, cleans himself up, washes himself up, and it's not that he's not sad anymore, but his countenance then changes to, I will go to be with him someday.
Yeah.
Eternal perspective.
Yep.
See that?
Yeah.
It's not it's not he's gone, I'll never see him again, my life's over, I'm destitute. It is, I will go to be with him one day.
Yeah.
Because David was zoomed out to the eternal perspective of what it was like to be a child of God.
And it's not that he didn't feel the sadness anymore
Yeah.
either. He still was heartbroken for losing his son, but he
Of
had
course.
that hope.
But he had the hope that he would be with him. And I think that's what Paul's talking about in Thessalonians. We don't grieve like those without hope.
Yeah.
Yep.
So where does that grief and that sadness cross over into what we talked about this weekend?
Yeah.
Impatience, complaining,
Yep.
exaggeration, and then turns into calling the gifts of God worthless.
Yeah.
That's I think what we really need to be careful.
Let me
of.
give a great resource. I think I was actually talking to your brother about this book not too long ago. There's a book called Dark Clouds, Deep Mercy, and it's like one of the best studies on lament I think I've ever read in my life. And that book will, if you're going through grief or trying to figure out how to grieve and lament in the process and be godly in your grief, that's one of the best books I think I've ever read.
Sorry, Rob. Another really good one is A Grief Observed. Is that C.S. Lewis, where C.S. Lewis, his wife died, and he documents his grief. It's called A Grief Observed. That's another good one. What were you going to say, Robbie?
Well, I was just going to say that I think a lot of times the biggest difference that people see, that the world sees, is something heartbreaking and tragic happens in a Christian's life, and they see the hope that we have and the positivity we have in that moment. And that's such a moment for us to use our personal testimony to point it right back to God.
Totally.
It's abnormal that
Yeah.
something so drastic in your life happens and you're able to be hopeful and positive.
Yeah.
And it's one of the greatest tools and resources we have.
Yep.
Is
And
our hope.
That's why the word says that's what people are going to say to you.
Yep.
Give me a reason for the hope, this hope.
Yeah.
I don't understand this hope that you have in you. Like, it's not that we're never sad. They clearly know that we're sad and we're grieving and things are difficult. It's not that there's never going to be difficulty, but our hope, our sadness doesn't trip the line into hopelessness and eternal grief.
I want to kind of change directions a little bit here. You made you gave a challenge to the church to make a commitment to put the things of God first in your life. What are you anticipating on seeing? How you want to see that practice through our church, or how can we put the things of God first in the next 3 months as you?
Yep, and I think perspective is one thing. What I'm not talking about is I'm not talking about some legalistic thing where we have to come and now earn something from God.
Yeah.
What I'm talking about is immersing ourselves in the means of grace, the means by which God uses to dispense his grace in our life.
Yep.
Church is that. Relationship with people in church is that. Serving in church is that. But more importantly than even those things, sitting under the preaching of the word, sitting under corporate prayer, sitting under the corporate reading of the word, sitting under corporate song. Like, those are the means by which God dispenses grace. Taking part in the Lord's table, communion, it's a means of grace. Witnessing, baptism, it's a means of grace. You're literally seeing the death and resurrection of Christ in the lives of people. If you haven't been baptized, being baptized, walking in that step of obedience. If it's personal reading, if it's personal study, wherever you are in your walk with Christ, what I'm challenging the church to is to take a step deeper. Go another step deeper. Like to the early church, the idea of being in attendance was a given.
Yep.
It was a given. In our day, it's just not a given. Like people will go once or twice a month. Watching online, though, when you're on vacation or something like that, or if you're homebound and you can't get to church, I totally understand that. But if you have the ability to get in your car and drive to church and you're just choosing to watch online, you're disconnected.
Yep.
You're not in relationship with people. Mm-hmm. You're not in relationship with the church. You're not under the pastoral leadership of the church. What I'm talking about is taking steps to move into and committing your life in a deeper way to the things of God. Maybe you're someone that's been very committed to church, but you've never become a member. And you've never partook in the voting or the life of the church or deeper service or leadership. Maybe there's people that have served forever, and your next step is you should be leading something. You should be leading a life group. And like Paul says, you should be teachers of the word, and you're not doing it.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, in a church our size, there's a ton of mature Christians that aren't leading anything.
Yeah.
And the reality is, in your life, you are equipped to lead and you should be leading. And if you were leading, you would be depending on God in a different way than you're depending on him now. Mm-hmm. And your walk with him would be different. It would be deeper. It would be more committed.
Yeah, I want to target on that statement because you mentioned like get to the first weekend of March and just see how your life is different.
Yeah.
So what are the ways that your life could look different?
I think number one, you're gonna feel committed to something.
Yeah.
People don't feel committed to the church, frankly, because they're not committed to the church.
It's true.
They don't give. They could be treating church more like you treat a movie theater.
Yeah.
Anyone feel committed to the Palace Theater? Because I go there twice a month to watch a movie. I have no commitment to them. Change from a movie theater type of relationship with the church to a committed relationship, and I'm willing to bet you'll start to make friends.
Yeah, and I would stress the importance of not even just coming to church on a Sunday and hearing it and leaving, like engage with the people on the weekend.
Talk to someone you don't know. I know how difficult that is, trust me. Get involved in something. Maybe if you're an introvert like me and it's hard for you to go meet people, go up to the Welcome Center and ask to serve somewhere. Now, listen, what I want to know is if you've asked to serve and someone hasn't gotten back to you and gotten you involved, okay, let me know that. But get plugged in. I think you're going to build relationships. I think we just naturally, when we build relationships with other Christians, our walk with Christ becomes deeper. We have people that keep us accountable. What I will think will happen in people's lives, they're going to feel more committed. They're going to feel a deeper relationship to Christ. I think the biggest thing is you're going to see those sins that you have in your life that have been difficult for you to overcome, that you've been striving to overcome. You're going to see them fall away just because of the nature of being busy with the work of God.
Yeah.
What I want to see, I want to see us being sent people.
Yeah.
I want to see people go to New York City or Boston or Mexico or Puerto Rico, and you begin to engage in ministering to people that are less fortunate than us. And we begin to make an impact in our community and the community around us and the community overseas. I think when you begin to see that happening in your life just radically begins to change.
Yeah, and I think we saw that video this weekend.
Yeah.
And just the testimonies of people's lives that lived sent.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that just life-changing. Ashley, I want to ask you a question. What are ways that families can make a commitment of putting the things of God first in their life during this season?
I definitely think I love that we're doing the push right now at Christmas time, because there are a lot of things that can pull families in different directions that I think it's important for families to serve together. Find opportunities, whether it's greeting at the front door or I know Elderwood is doing the sing as a choir and come as a family. There's those kind of opportunities locally that I think are important. But I also think it stems from what Chris and I have said before. It's at your dinner table and just having a small devotional with your kids, and it's that perspective, right? So how do we put the perspective back on Christ when it can be pulled to the presence or the this or the that? We have to be at this place, we have to be at that place. It's a perspective of how do we put Christ first? Let's have a short little reading. Let's talk about Jesus' story. If it's Christmas morning, I encourage parents. I know it's fun and we have traditions. Make one of your traditions reading the story of Christmas in the morning to start before you then do all your holiday traditions with your family and your friends.
Yeah, and I would just take one step off of what she said. Maybe a practical way. Maybe some parents are sitting here going, well,
Because that could be intimidating.
what can we
right?
do? What can we do to take a part in this challenge that Pastor's given us? Maybe it's as simple as at the dinner table every night for the next 3 months, read the Bible and pray with your kids.
Yeah.
It could be that simple. And all of a sudden, your whole family is experiencing a deeper relationship with God just by something simply that takes 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So,
But I also want to encourage everyone, the other part of what you spoke about this weekend too is the patience aspect.
Yep.
So we're talking about how we want to see these changes, and you will see these changes, but I don't want anyone to be discouraged where I'm trying to cultivate joy and I'm doing these steps where you don't want to get legalistic with it, but then you have to add that level of patience in there too. Mm-hmm. You spoke on it earlier, how in the Bible, they were generational, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes you might not see something instilled in your kids yet, but don't lose hope because it's not there. Have that patience that you spoke about that they weren't having in the wilderness.
Yeah.
You have all this time start to cultivate these things. And as you layer things, I see it with Bible studies. You talk about being plugged in. Okay, you come to the preaching of the word on Sunday. Now you're in a different part of the Bible in a Bible study at church. And God uses that layering to help you grow deeper, where you can cultivate that joy, where you can change your perspective, but you have to be patient.
Yeah, I think that's so good. I feel like life is a bunch of living a godly life is a bunch of built up obedience, as opposed to like one time confirmation, one time like, oh man, God just showed up here. It's just a lot of little steps of built up obedience.
Yep, it's a journey. It's not a sprint.
Yep.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of What Did He Mean by That? We would like to invite you and encourage you to invite others to our weekend services. We have services on Saturday at 6 p.m. and Sunday at 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. Hope to see you there.